Guys, it's been 6 years since the original Frozen, and it's time to let it go and travel into the unknown. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a brand new movie review. Today I'm going to be discussing Frozen 2. I'm sure a very highly anticipated animated sequel for many of you. And for me, I enjoy the first Frozen. I think there are a lot of great elements to it. And while I do think it got a little bit overplayed, especially if you ever babysitted someone who loved Frozen and they would have it on the whole time and you just hear build a snowman, let it go 24/7, it's whatever to me. Besides that, it's a good movie. I enjoy watching it. And I was interested in a sequel to this Frozen 2. I didn't think there needed to be one made, but I was excited at least to see what mythology they could build about in this world, especially traveling in to figure out what is going on with Elsa's life. As Anna, Elsa, Kristoff, Olaf, and of course Sven leave Arendelle to travel to an ancient bound forest of an ancient land, and they set out to find the origin of Elsa's power in order to save their kingdom. And with that whole in mind, I was excited to see what mythology and what kind of aspect they could bring to the Frozen world, because even though the first one's great, it really is a tale of two sisters. And this one I was hoping to get a little bit more of an expansion on the world of Frozen, which we will discuss. But before we get any further into this review, guys, why don't you hit that like and subscribe button? Comment down below and let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Are you guys excited for Frozen 2? Are you not? Let's discuss it down there. And again, hit that like and subscribe button so you guys never miss out on any early movie reviews, geeky content, anything I do over on this channel on a daily basis. That's all for you guys. Come on and say this right now. I think Frozen 2 is good. I think it's just as good as the first one, and I actually will go and say I think the second one does some things that are better, and of course the first one still did some things that were better than the second one. It's hard to hit that sleigh going down the hill as fast as the first one did again, because the first one was like, it came out of nowhere, I remember. Like, everyone was really anticipating, but the amount of money, the amount of popularity that film came over, it was really out of nowhere, and I felt like Disney has been trying to reproduce that same thing, whether it's with Moana and now Frozen 2, they've been trying to get that same feeling going, and with Frozen 2, while I don't think it's hitting the sleigh as hard as it is down the road, it still is good, and I think one of the biggest elements to that is the way that they expand this world. One of the things I was very much looking forward to. The mythology and the origin building of Elsa's powers are unique, and the way that they kind of go to that has a nice message for younger audiences, and I think for even us as people. I liked what they were going into the message, and I don't want to get into it here just because it's kind of for spoiler sakes, but I do like what they were going with in this story. The other thing I was looking forward to is seeing where our characters decided to go and how much they have grown over the last 6 years, and you definitely see how much they've grown, because this film, as it takes place 6 years later in our world, since we saw the first one, it's also 6 years later in this world, and many things have changed in here. Kristoff and Sven are closer with Anna and Elsa, Olaf still being his lucky little snowman. One of the big standouts for this film, actually, for me, was Kristoff and Sven. I actually thought they gave him a lot more stuff to do in here, and Kristoff has one song, one sequence in here that will melt your heart. For parents of any kid who goes to see this film, you are going to laugh, but at the same time love what Kristoff is singing about and the way that they decided to stylize and animate that sequence. Speaking of the animation, let's discuss the animation. I'm always blown away when I go to another one of the Disney or Pixar films, because animation is to a whole nother level now, and in this movie, just rewatching Frozen yesterday and then going into Frozen 2, the animation, the way that it has changed over the last 6 years is a triumphant achievement. We saw a little bit of that in Toy Story 4, and it's just as great in Frozen 2. Just the attention to detail always sparks a little flare in my eyes and a little gleam of a smile. And speaking of that smile, Frozen 2 definitely had me smiling the whole time. And maybe even dropped a couple tears here and there, just like the first one does. And we can really thank that to Anna and Elsa's relationship in here and the way that it furthers these sisters' dynamics. But it's also Olaf who brings that same sensibilities, those fun elements, and Josh Gad just rides with it. He has also a couple moments in here that had me bursting out laughing, and I absolutely adored it. And one of them is actually a little bit of a recap that he does for the first Frozen for certain characters. Very sliver part of the movie, but I was on the floor laughing. I actually think this movie is actually more funny than the first one, which is quite surprising. While I did think Olaf got it quite annoying in times in the first one, he didn't annoy me in the second one. I actually thought it was a needed addition. Most fun things about this movie. This new adventure, this new area that they are going to is beautiful. I love diving into this new world and expanding on Arendelle and everything that's beyond it. All these elements in one that do infuse this world to that magic of Frozen, but does it actually keep that same magic that the first one felt like it had? That's actually where I'm here to say that I don't think, even after seeing this and as much as I wanted to see them expand on the world, I didn't think it expanded enough. to even warrant a sequel. And I understand they made the sequel because money, and I know there was very much passion behind the scenes. You can definitely feel that. I think they had an idea. And while I think it's just as good as the first one, I think the issues that I have with this one is that as it's building up, it's rising action within the script, it kind of just, the way it climaxes, it's just fine. Like, the first one I felt like was more triumphant, and it's building up to this ferocious ending. It even feels a little bit Shakespearean in there. In this one, it felt like it was just building, ends. Like, it just ends. Like, it built, and it was a cool ending, but it just felt very predictable in those elements. And I'm not saying the story was predictable, because there was one element of the story I was waiting to happen the whole entire time, and it didn't. And I was like, good on you for not doing that. Thank you. Any other animated film would have done that. Also, the songs. I mentioned the KRISTOFF song. It's good. And I mentioned Into the Unknown. It's great. But every other song in here kind of has the same thing that Mary Poppins 2 did. While I love the second Mary Poppins, the songs really aren't that memorable, just like the first one. And I think the first songs from the first Frozen, sorry parents, are going to be more classical and still more played around than the songs in Frozen 2. It's not like the soundtrack's bad. They're great. And it seems like there was actually more songs in this one than there was in the first one. Some of them landed, some of them didn't. Some of them I wanted to end. But they were all still good. It's just something. Frozen 2 is good. And that's how I feel about it. Before I give you guys my final thoughts on Frozen 2, make sure to comment down below. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Are you guys excited for it? Are you not? Let's discuss it down below in the comments, guys. Of course, if you guys are new here, make sure to also head over to Sandwich on Films down below. And if you guys are curious on how to see films early, right down there, we can give out advanced movie tickets all the time. And a big thank you to you for clicking on this video, and a big thank you to my Patreon supporters, because without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. Frozen 2 has grown up with the audience that grew up with this film 6 years ago. And while I don't think it was a needed sequel, it expanded on the lore and the mythology of Arendelle and the world surrounding it, and I liked what they did. I actually think the best thing for Frozen in the future now is to kind of do what Disney's been doing with Tangled and Big Hero 6 and continuing it into a show format. These characters are beloved. I love Olaf, I love Kristoff, and I love Sven, and how much more dynamics that they added to these characters within this one. And then Anna and Elsa and the further elements of the sisterhood that they traveled onto even adds to it more. There's a great message in here for kids and even some adults that really do need it, that is inside the story by the end where you notice it. Beautifully animated. The songs are good. Not as memorable as the first one. I won't be singing along to Let It Go! Let It Go! Or even Do You Wanna Build a Snowman? Nothing that's as memorable as those, but there are sequences in here through the songs that are awesome. I enjoyed this movie. I had fun with it. Again, I think this is definitely, kids are going to love it. I think people who grew up with the first Frozen and kind of grew up 6 years later now and really have that memory of seeing Frozen for the first time are really going to adore this movie. And I think if you enjoy the first Frozen, you're going to enjoy the second one. You're going to walk out and be like, that was good. And I think it's just as good as the first one personally. So for me, I'm going to give Frozen 2 a B. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are again on Frozen. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. If you have seen it already, comment down below and let me know what your favorite song is from the new one and what your favorite song is from the first one, guys. Thank you guys again so much for watching this. And of course, until next time, stay classy.